south of Scruffy.
I pressed go over here. Dude.
Make it a little bit nicer.
No, it's all good. Thanks for coming, man.
Yeah, of course.
What you got over there? A whole bag of tricks.
Yeah, we got a fleet, we'll call it.
Yeah.
I obviously do a lot with drones and anything that flies, I guess. So we've got a whole little a pack of these guys. So this is it's called the Racer 4. This is what I fly on DRL, the Drone Racing League.
So that's a big drone.
Yeah, so this is the big drone. We fly it. It's meant to be very visually appealing. It looks really cool. These are lights. It's filled with lights in here. It sounds really cool with these big propellers, and it's big, so it's easy to see.
Yeah.
So this is the one we race on TV on the DRL, which is like, of course, the show that premieres on the NBC.
Yeah. So why is it so big? Because I noticed you've got different sizes. Is it so big so the crowd can see it?
Yeah,
so they can fit all the flashy lights in it and gamify it.
Yeah, we really want to. They're trying to make this a sport, so they wanted to. The first thing you want to do is make the things sound cool and look cool. I mean, any cars, they want to make them look cool.
Yeah.
And they have the cool sound to them. So they took a similar approach to this. So this thing, these big propellers put off a really nice sound, as well as just filling them with lights. Each pilot has their own color. I'm the blue drone all the time, but every pilot has their own color, and everybody knows whose drone it is at all times. So they're nice and big, and they sound cool and look cool, the whole nine yards.
So for people who haven't seen drone racing before, professional drone racing, it happens in like stadium-sized venues, right?
Yeah. So we DRL races in recently in the past they've raced in like Chase Fields over in Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah.
So these are baseball stadiums, basketball stadiums, football stadiums. They raced down in Miami at the football stadium at the Miami Dolphins. Yeah. So they've raced in all these football stadiums, and they it's like a sport unlike any other sport in the world where we can actually fly through these stadiums, not just down on the field, not jumping on jumps on the field. We're flying through the hallways of the stadium, up over the crowd, and it really is a whole new dynamic to the sports of a sport you can have inside a stadium.
I remember the first time I saw drone racing on television, it was at the Miami Dolphins Stadium, and I was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen, and it did not feel real.
Yeah, exactly.
It felt fake. It felt like a video game of some sort, which is, I'm sure we'll talk about it, like the lines are a little bit blurred, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So with your big racing drone right there, you're wearing goggles. Like is that it's first person? Is that what it's called?
It's FPV is what it's called. So that's for first person view.
Okay.
So we're wearing these goggles. These are FPV goggles, and that's a lot like VR goggles. I know VR is starting to become very popular, and it's very similar. So we wear these goggles, and we look through this tiny little camera here on the front, and we're able to wear the goggles, see exactly live, very low latency, what the drone is seeing. And then we use our controller right here and use these two sticks, and there's no GPS, there's no anything. We're doing all the controls manually via these two sticks right here.
And that's elevation, that's pitch, yaw. It's
So,
how many different axes are you working with?
There's 4 axes, and we're combining them all at the same time. So we have the left stick going up. That's throttle, so that's what makes it go up and down. Or if you're tilted, it makes it go faster or slower.
Yeah.
And then you have roll, which is this right stick back and forth, which makes it roll to the right or to the left. And then you have the right stick back and forth, which is pitch back and pitch forward.
Brings the nose up or the nose down.
Look up or down.
Okay.
And then you have this left stick left to right is yaw, so that's what makes it twist
on its
left or
on
right.
its belly.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
In the center. Okay. So, and then we're combining all of those at the exact same time with no help from any other computers, no GPS, nothing.
The only thing you have is that first-person view right there.
Yeah, we're just looking. It's like being a fighter pilot is the best way to say it. We are sitting in the cockpit of this thing, all from sitting on the ground. And that's really a cool thing about FPV in the community is that it's such an interesting dynamic because there's so much tech inside of it that it attracts people from like your rocket scientists, all these people from all over the world. But then it attracts the adrenaline junkies of like your ex-motocross guys, your ex-mountain bike guys who want to have that adrenaline rush, but they can't because they got injured maybe, or they don't want to risk it and they have a family or whatever. And they can sit down here, go ride down a mountain, go chase a car, go do whatever, all from sitting in the safe. It's safe. It's a safe sport, and it's a really cool cross between technology and that adrenaline rushing group of people. And I think it's a really cool community.
I think so too. Do you guys consider yourself athletes?
That's an argument that I've heard 1,000 times
really?
each way. And yes, I am a professional drone racer. And to a certain degree, yes, we are athletes. I mean, I guess the argument would be like esports, for example. If you are the top video game guys, they're some of the best in the world, and do you consider them an athlete? Yes or no? And that's not an argument I'll get into. But we are really this is our full-time job. We train at this all the time, and this is the best of the best. When you look at anything in the world and you get to that top tier, you can't just get there on accident. These guys are putting in the time. We are working very hard. There's guys like I train not only just sitting here and practicing flying, but I have to take like a very strict physical route where like I have to work out and like keep my body fresh just because that helps me when I actually go out there and fly, to be able to perform under pressure, have that mental stamina throughout the entire race. So it's much more than people realize of just a bunch of guys who are nerds sitting there flying their drones. It's a much deeper thing once you get to the professional level.
Right. So you and I talked a little bit about the video game aspect of it too, and before we started, and part of that was a simulator that you were talking about.
Yeah,
and that's pretty interesting, like how much they can simulate real life in on a game console now.
Yeah, so that's what I mean, obviously with COVID, that's something that has affected us greatly, but I think that's a really cool thing, again, about the sport, is that the Super Bowl couldn't have been played by those players on Madden. The NBA game you can't take them and go play on 2K. It's like a video game in real life, so that means you can take it and play it on an actual video game and it be the same thing. So DRL has what's called the Drl Simulator, and it's $20 on Steam. You can get it on your Xbox, your PlayStation, and you can use either, of course, this is a drone controller, but you can use an Xbox controller, plug it into your computer, and for $20, you can be flying the drones just like we are. You can start practicing just like we do and doing exactly what we do. And it's a really cool mix because you can go, and I practice a lot of the training I do for these real-life races is done not out at the field, not out in my backyard, but in my room where I'm sitting there on the computer, and I can practice. I can crash the drone 1,000 times. I don't have to go pick it up. I don't have to worry about bothering my neighbors. I don't have to worry about fixing it or breaking it, etc. And you can get so many hours and get so good so fast, and it translates one-to-one into real life.
Really?
So that is so like unique and incredible that this sport can do that, is because when COVID happened and we couldn't travel and we couldn't go bring all these pilots from all over the world to race, we actually went and competed for the World Championship on the simulator. So I flew from my room on a computer and I competed online against all these guys from around the world for the World Championship this year from my room. And it wasn't like, oh, well, you're better at the video game than real life. It's not like that. It is the same thing. You're doing the exact same controls. You're flying the exact same drone. It is all simulated to be just like real life. And it's really cool that the sport can continue and grow like that with a community of people online, even when none of us can go travel, none of us can practice, etc. We can do it all from the comfort of our own homes and everything be exactly the same.
It really is one-to-one. That's not lip service. Like, it really does feel like there has to be something different.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, you don't have the crowd there and they're screaming and stuff, and you don't have, like, that pressure of sitting right next to someone. I mean, like, there's, like, social things like that. But as far as, like, I can't go out and say that it is one-to-one. It's not exactly the same. But
tactically it is.
Yeah, I mean, the controls are the same, and the way I would describe it, the way we like to describe it is the drone might not be exactly the same, but I mean, this drone's not exactly the same. The smaller drone is not exactly the same as the bigger one. However, it's the exact same controls, the exact same, everything else is the same, but, it might not perform exactly identical.
Yeah.
So the sim you might not be able to, like, take the exact stick commands and go straight to the real life and do the exact same thing and it work. Yeah. But everything else, like the controls, everything is the same, to where it's not going to be, just because it's on the sim, that's why you lost. Yeah. Because it really is so similar. So
if I had never flown a drone in my life and I picked up this simulator and I got really good at the simulator, and then I walked out and I picked up the controller to this drone.
Yeah, you'd be a pro.
Really?
Yeah, it would be easy. And
really?
Yeah. So like I was telling you earlier, so the DRL, they have the 12 best pilots from around the world.
Is that what makes up the DRL?
The 12 best pilots, yes.
Gotcha. And you're one of those?
Yes.
Wait, the world champion, right?
Yeah. So I did win the 2020 World Championship. So they each year they do what's called the Drl Sim Tryouts, and that's where they take their game and you can go on and practice in the DRL. You can fly anyone. You can be on Xbox, PlayStation, whatever, and you can sit there, practice the tracks, practice flying, practice racing, and they'll host a race series. And if you go through that race series and you win, not flying anything in real life, only on the sim, and you win that race, you become a professional pilot the next day.
Really?
And they will send you to a real race, and you'll be flying real drones against real pilots. And it doesn't. I mean, of course, you probably will have flown a real drone by then, but it doesn't matter. That's how confident they are that it's 1-to-1.
Really,
you can go from flying a video game to getting put on a real life stage against the best of the best. That's how confident they are. And I mean, if that's saying something, they're willing to put you on a salary, fly you out there, and get you all these sponsors. Like, I think that shows from their perspective, like a company perspective, that they really believe in it. And I mean, even from my side, it 100% is amazing.
So DRL is the NASCAR of drone racing, right?
Yeah.
They're the biggest governing body.
Yeah,
for
it's
drone racing.
The premier drone racing league. So there are other drone racing leagues, more grassroots ones. I mean, just like NASCAR, there's other people like smaller
dirt track racing and stuff like that.
Yeah. But the top of the top, best of the best is the DRL.
Gotcha. How old is it?
I think the DRL is about 6 years old.
Okay.
And that's what's so also interesting about the sport is the sport is so young. When you talk about football, baseball, like the mechanics, everything of the sport has been developed over hundreds of years. But this sport is so new. The technology is so new. It's still developing so fast. And each year is so different from the next because it's still developing so rapidly.
Yeah. Do you see big jumps in tech and in some of the pilots' abilities and things like that just year to year are just jumping, leaping?
Yeah, it's constantly evolving. It's incredible to see, like you said, the pilot skill. And that's the craziest thing to me is not only is the technology increasing so fast, but the skill. If you would have taken the best pilot from 2 years ago, like that is such a short amount of time. Like if you took the Super Bowl team from 2 years ago and played them against this one, it would have been that crazy. But if you took the best pilot from 2 years ago and compared him against this, the world champion this year, it would be an embarrassment. It would
really?
It's not even close to the level that we were on 2 years ago. And then I guarantee you, if you took the world champion from this year and compare him from 2 years into the future from now, it won't even be close.
Really?
Just because we're learning so fast, and there's so many new things that we learn every single time we go out and fly these things. On top of that, as well as the technology that, of course, helps, just like in like any sort of motocross sport. Like, of course, the cars get better each year, and combine that with better drivers, it's only going to increase faster. And this, since it's so new, we're leaping so far. Each step is so big right now that it's really amazing to see how fast it's developing.
That's great. So what kind of people do you find in the stands at a DRL race?
Yeah, it is.
You spoke a little bit to the adrenaline junkie, and the gamer. Like it's kind of everywhere in between.
Yeah, it's so diverse. Not only the pilots that are in it, but also the crowd. And it ranges all the way from like your NASCAR fans who are like maybe like NASCAR's not on or NASCAR's on. And, I just saw drone racing. This is really cool. All the way down to like your technology nerds who like really like want to know about the technology of all the drones, and they get on and like, oh, that's so cool. I wonder what frequencies, et cetera, they're using. And it's all just a mesh of all these different types of people that all come together and have this common interest in drone racing and like the pilots behind it. So, like I said, you really find just people from all over, from your grandparents all the way down to your 18-year-olds who will just think drone racing is really cool and want to get into it and be the best.
It's super cool. When did you realize you were good at it?
Well, I'd say my story in drones has been occurring for the last, like, pretty much my entire life. I started flying remote control airplanes from the age of 6 years old.
Oh, gotcha. Was your dad into it?
My dad and I got into it. He got me a Christmas present when I was 6 years old as an RC airplane. And
did you build it yourself? And
my dad and I built it, and it was a foam airplane, pretty cheap one, but we flew it. My dad's a really nerdy guy, and we went out and crashed it immediately, of course. But then you get to take it back and rebuild it, of course, and learn about more things about it. And then we went out and flew it again. It's kind of something that he found interested in, and I found interested in. And I'm sure as a father, that having a common interest with your son or your daughter is something that's really it gives you a lot of joy. And it was something that we could do together.
That's cool.
And we slowly started to do it more and more. And then I remember he got me a simulator, and they had the simulators for RC airplanes as well.
Okay. Was this on a console or was it?
It was on a computer. It's called Real Flight, and it was very similar. You can fly the plane on the computer. You can practice, get all the same stick commands, and then go out and do it in real life, and it's pretty similar. And he got that, and I mean, I was 8, so I got really good really fast because he was at work and he had 3 other kids. I'm one of 4. I'm the oldest of 4, and so he was a grown up, and I was a kid. I would come home after school to get my homework done and practice, and I started to get pretty good at it. And that was RC airplanes, which is different than the drones,
right?
But about the age of 10, I started competing flying RC airplanes.
Ah, I didn't know that was a market.
Yeah, so that, and it's a lot smaller, much more hobbyist. It's not like a career or anything, but it was something that I was just like, I got good at it, and then we started going to competitions, and I actually won I won a national championship at the age of 11.
Oh, wow.
Flying remote control airplanes.
Against old men?
Yeah, which is kind of funny. I was like this little 11-year-old, like couldn't even like see above the guys, and like I was sitting there flying against them.
But that's not first person stuff, right?
No,
you're actually watching it with your own eyeballs.
There, yeah, exactly. Sitting there looking up at the sky, flying tricks and stuff.
Yeah.
And
were they like, here's the chosen one? He's the one. He's 11. He's gonna be the guy.
It kind of was. Like I kind of developed, and I worked really hard at it, or at least at the beginning. I still try to just get as good as I could, as fast as I could, because I was, they say you want to do, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Sure. And I'm very fortunate now this is my job, this is my career, and like this is what I've done since I was a kid. Like this is literally, I grew up and I didn't say like, oh, I want to do that and I want to be an astronaut or whatever. Like I wanted to fly. Like literally, I have a poster from 4th grade saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said RC airplane pilot.
Really?
Yeah. And that's what I am.
Yeah.
And I do it professionally, and it's like been my dream ever since I was a kid.
That's super cool.
It's so cool. I really am, like, I feel like I'm living my dream. And
I wanted to play for the Atlanta Braves when I was 8 years old.
Wow.
And that didn't quite work out.
Yeah,
but you're doing it.
I feel so fortunate to be in this position, and like there's, of course, being 18, I'm a senior in high school, and there's so many, like it's an interesting part, I guess, point in my life for me, because there's that, you're going to go to college, you're going to do this. And it's like, if I'm living my dream right now and I'm making things happen right now, then like, so I'm deciding not to go to college right now. And I have all these opportunities laid out in front of me between racing and my own company and like filming and things like, there's so many different ways you can take this, and being where I am in the industry right now and having all this momentum. And I went from that 6-year-old who was like, I want to be an RC airplane pilot when I grow up, to being here, having all these opportunities laid out in front of me and just making the most of it. I'm 18 and I'm trying to make the most of all these opportunities, being on a podcast like this, trying to get my name out there, and like just trying to make the most of it. And if it fails, it fails. I'm just like every other broke 18-year-old in the world, and I can go out with all these awesome opportunities and experiences that I've had from a young age. I actually, I was homeschooled my second semester of my junior year in high school.
Wow.
Or my
so
first
you could
semester,
race?
And I traveled the world. I went to, I think it was 12 countries. I traveled all across Europe, went to South Korea, all across the United States just to race. And it was all on all expenses paid trips to race. I made money doing it. And I mean, I was 15, 16-year-old going out racing, traveling the world, racing drones, doing what he loved. And it was just, that's an opportunity. Those are experiences that you can't get doing anything else. And yes, like I went homeschool, and I had to go away from my friends, and it was something I almost regretted at a certain point, because like I kind of got separated from my friends and stuff. But looking back on it now, I'm so glad that I did that, because I got all these amazing experiences that, some people would kill to be 16 years old, getting flown to Germany, getting flown to Belgium, getting flown to South Korea, and go travel the world being 16 to go see all these things before I even turn 18, 20,
right,
and have all these opportunities, meet all these amazing people. And I mean, as you know, is like part of business, like having that networking and being able to meet all these people is so valuable. And owning a company, people always told me from the beginning, like, networking is everything, and I really didn't understand that until like I started to grow the company. And after I had all these amazing experiences and had all these connections within the industry, I really started to see that I really began to become more thankful of taking those opportunities and making the most of them. And that's what kind of inspired me to go the route of not going to college and trying to make the most of all this while I can. And again, if it fails, it fails. And I'm just like every other 18-year-old in the world that's broke and has to go to college. But if I can make the most of it and make this into a career, then I'm going to do it in a heartbeat.
Heck yeah, man. Well, your company. So it's a drone company, right? Do you make drones? You said you made that one.
Yeah. So my company
That's the smallest one of the three you brought.
Exactly. So this is a drone it's called the Tiny Trainer. And this is exactly what it sounds like. It's tiny, and it's a replica of this drone right here.
It's about the size of your hand.
Yeah,
roughly.
It's about the size of my palm. Or about the size of my hand, like you said. It uses much smaller propellers. It's much cheaper. It's much quieter. And it's a lot more durable than flying a big, heavy machine like that.
It's made to crash a little bit?
Oh, yeah. And it's a trainer, just like any sort of like training vehicle or whatever. Like you can kind of beat it around, and it's meant to take a beating. So my company started a year and a half ago, the end of 2019, or mid to late 2019, November. And it was kind of me. I started it on accident, I kind of like to say. Is my mechanic, he was the guy who built all my drones, because I was traveling all these places and I was competing in multiple leagues, and his name is Armando. And Armando would build all my drones, make sure my drones were in tip-top shape. He would come to some of the races and make sure I was always under control and so forth. And he is formerly an aerospace engineer for Boeing. And so he is my business partner now.
Yeah.
And he was my mechanic for, I'd say, about a year. We'll call him a mechanic. He maintained all my drones, and when I was racing, and then I was to the point where I had won recently the national championship that year, and all these companies started to reach out to me, and they're like, "We want to make a." So I go by Headsup. That's like my call sign, and FPV everybody goes by their like call sign. So I go by Headsup, and so everybody knows me as that. And everybody wanted to start making Headsup products. They wanted to make Headsup motors. They wanted to make a Headsup frame, a Headsup drone, a Headsup propeller, and all that. And like, that's kind of where the point where I got to, and I guess I've learned this now being in business for so long, is you can. All these companies will always be happy to give you the salary, or give you like, oh, we'll give you a couple dollars and we'll do all the work and so forth. We'll market you and so forth. And I had all these opportunities laid out in front of me, but I actually had a few mentors kind of like within the industry, and they were like, we think that you could like, and so I'll go back a couple steps. So they were we'll start out with the frame. So the frame is this carbon fiber piece right here. And that is, so all these drones, we build them from scratch, and you start out with the frame, and you put the motors on, you put all the electronics in, but the frame is a key part, and it's a part that, of course, you have to design, and there's different things you can do, but I want to design my own racing frame. And Armando, who's a very talented aerospace engineer, of course, for Boeing, very successful company, he said, I have some ideas for making a frame for you, and he'll build it around what I wanted. And we were going to design this frame around what I wanted, and then another company was going to do all the work. They were going to market it. They were going to give me a couple bucks for every one they sell, and we'll go from there. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. But then someone who runs a business in the community was like, I think that you are in a very unique spot where you should do it yourself. I can help you get to talk to these companies, and I can get to the manufacturers and try and so forth. Maybe you could sell a couple frames yourself and do it out of your basement. It'd be easy. And I was like, oh, okay, like that sounds cool. And I was in a weird spot in my life. I was 16, and when you asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, like, I didn't know. Like, I of course, drone racing, any professional sport, you can go in there and, like, you can be the best baseball player but then your arm will go out, and, like, you can't be the best forever. And I was at a peak in my career, I guess you could say, and I was like, I don't want to say I want to be a professional drone racer when I grow up, because that's not sustainable. I'm not going to be a 40-year-old professional drone racer. But I started that business we started with Armando, and it like took off, and it was crazy. I didn't realize how good of a position I was in, because when you're starting a business, of course, you need reputability. And the way you do that usually is you have influencers. Like right now, that's like, like TikTok and YouTube, whatever. Companies will get these YouTubers to say, hey, I use this and it's great. But I was in such a unique position to where I was at the top of my community, and all these people wanted to run exactly what I run. They want to use my drone. They want to use this. And if I start my own company, then I can self-market. Right. I didn't have to pay someone else. I didn't have to give somebody that dollar. It was all from me. I was doing all the work, sure, but I was learning so much about business, learning so much about running this company, and like, there's so much behind running the company of like, just getting, even from like getting your business license to like negotiating with Chinese companies, and like having to do all that, and trying to make sure you don't get like taken advantage of, like that, just things like that. As a company is something that I had to learn, and I learned firsthand. And so that was just such a cool experience that I got to do there. And from there, it really took off. And like I said, everyone wanted to use my drone, and I was like, after I won the national championship that year, we launched the 533 drone. And where'd the name come from? So that is so I don't know if you guys play Call of Duty or any racing games, but like, how you have like the sensitivity of your stick or the sensitivity of your mouse. Okay. And mine is, on our drones, we have something very similar. And so mine, when I push the stick all the way to the right, the setting is it'll rotate at 533 degrees per second. Okay. And that number is a number that was so everybody like wants to know what sensitivity do you use or whatever. And mine was always, I use 533 degrees per second. And that kind of people kind of start to know me for that. Really? And then I say that was one of the hardest parts of starting a business, was coming up with a name. So we had all these things, I had all this. had everything lined up. We were like, we need a name for the product and we need a name for the company. And we got a logo, and next thing you know, like, we just launched it at 533. Like, at some point, and that's kind of what I've learned is, like, through all this, one of the biggest things I've learned is sometimes you just have to go for it. Like,
pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Perfect is the enemy of done.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're always sitting there thinking about, oh, if I do this different, if I do this, and I might this, you'll never get it done. And if you just commit and go do it, that is the biggest thing I've, like, learned from all this is I just committed and went and did it. Sure, it could have failed, and who cares? And that's why I feel so fortunate to have done this at the age I have, is that I'm not 30-year-old, and if it fails, then my kids won't be able to eat for a week.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm 16, and oh no, I like whatever. Like, who cares?
Yeah, the stakes are lower.
Exactly.
I guess.
And it was all of this has been self-funded completely by myself. So
that's
I was
awesome.
That's another thing that like both my parents are doctors, and so they've been able to support me a lot throughout all of this. But I've always felt like some people may have been like, oh, your parents are doctors, and like you kind of been like you've been given opportunities that you didn't earn.
No wonder you're the best at it. Your parents are doctors.
And I didn't want that. So I'd been able to win races, and I'd been able to have sponsors that pay me and do deals and things like that, to where I had saved up money myself. So this business that I've grown alongside Armando has been completely funded by myself, and I've done this all none of it was given to me by anything like that. It was all just going out there and doing it. And that's I didn't think about it, I did it. And that's what I look for in, like, if in a person, look at like personality traits, is I love somebody who goes out there, doesn't like you. There's so many people you go out and they talk the talk, they talk about this, oh, I want to do this, I want to own this business and do this, that, and the other. And the people who actually go out and do it, and if you go out there and fail 1,000 times, I respect that a million more times than you give me the best business plan in the world and don't do it.
Yeah.
And that is something that's what I want to be, that person that goes out and does it. And you're going to fail. It's part of life. And that was kind of my philosophy that I've kind of developed over these past year and a half, is that I kind of accidentally did this, and I was going to sell a couple carbon fiber parts out of my basement, and now it's turned into selling motors, frames, and we're turning it into this like lifestyle brand. We have hats, apparel, all kinds of things. And it's just because that one day I was like, who cares? Let's go do it. And I think it's a very valuable lesson that I've learned.
What was that decision like, to either license your name and let some other company, make a bunch of money and give you 35% of it, or pull the trigger on going in this whole vertical integration where you're doing the whole thing from racing still, which is the bread and butter, and then creating the, down to the propellers on the drones. Yeah. Like, what was that decision like you said a little bit that it was, I don't want to be a retired 40-year-old drone pilot with nothing to their name. Like, that seems like a sustainable thing. But what was that like in your head?
It was, and again, it was almost like an accident. I didn't understand then what it was I was doing. So if I went with that company, they would have thrown you you get 15% of every drone that you sell, and you need to go out there and push this as hard as you can. Yeah. We'll give you 15% of that. But what I didn't understand is that what I'm doing by starting a business is that's a closed loop. So if you are an influencer and you're going out there and you're saying use this product, by doing that you are pushing traffic and using your name to push things there. And then your other company that supports you, you're pushing people and money there. But being in the position that I'm in, it's a closed loop. So when I say use this motor, it comes right back around to thus supporting myself. And that's another thing with racing, is not only does the success in me racing or any filming that I do, that doesn't go support this company and does support this company. It comes right back around, supports the company, which then helps me do better in racing. So it's very important for me. The company is not what it is without me, I guess you could say, and without Armando and all the things that he does. And it puts me in a very unique position to where it does add a little bit of stress as far as the like racing performance. Like, yes, there's a lot of pressure and stress that goes into each race, because now not only does it affect me, I have employees. I have Armando. He's running a family off of this, and it does add a little bit of a pressure to I want to perform so that he can like be successful as well, because it's not only me that it's affecting anymore, it's a bigger picture. And I think it adds and I love it. I wouldn't change it for the world, and I thrive off pressure. I love being under that pressure. I love when people are there watching, because I feel like that is what kind of separates the boys from the men, and that's what in life, and not only just in drone racing.
We talked about it before we got started, about a lot of people have the chops. A lot of people can fly a drone really well. Yeah. But it's the part between your ears that separates the world champions from
Yeah.
the hobbyist, right?
Exactly.
We said it's like golf a little bit.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. And it really is because, so, I mean, obviously, like people listening or you don't know much about the racing industry. And what you'll start to see, or what I've seen over the years, is that there's so many people who get so good at racing, and they'll post these videos of like, here's me practicing in my backyard. And it's like insanity what they're able to do. But then they get to an actual race, and you get to the finals, and there's thousands of dollars on the line. And now it's like they have to do that on the line. And that's what makes it so difficult. And it's like you were saying, it's a lot like golf. Going up there for putting, you have like maybe the cute drink girl watching you over there, and like all your buddies watching behind you, and it's like you got to putt and make this for the win. And it's just like that shaking feeling, and it's like if you are just off by a degree, then yep, you're going to miss to the right by a 50 feet or whatever. Yeah. And it's so much like that in racing. It's so hard to describe to people how much of a mental game it really is, because if you think about it, so say you're traveling at 100 miles an hour, and it's like driving like a car. If you're driving at 100 miles per hour and you have to stop by X point, if you put on the brakes at X point, okay, you're going to stop there. But say you do it a half second later and you're traveling at 100 miles per hour, that might be 100 feet that you're off. And say we're flying down the straightaway at 100 miles an hour, and you're sitting there under that pressure, and you have a drone to your right, a drone right in front of you, and you're trying to calculate all these things. Think about the next best line that you're going to take to pass this guy, and you have to move this stick perfectly under no hesitation at the exact right time, not early, not late. And doing that under the pressure, under all those people watching you, knowing that you're live on NBC right now and there's millions of viewers, that is where, again, separates like the boys from the men. And a lot of the sport actually is dominated by very, very young people. I would say some of the best pilots in the world right now are between the ages of 12 and 16. And what you'll see from those guys is they will post some of the best footage in the world, but what it takes to get to like the top level and to win that big race is there's a certain level of like professionalism that you have to take, and like you can't let things get in your head. And like people, like when there's money on the line, like all bets are off. And like, not that people play dirty, but like we're all best friends off the track, but like once you get on the track, like that's like you're trying to pay the bills, you're trying to win this race.
Sure.
So that's where you'll start to see like the younger kids or the people who haven't been in the sport as long, is that they'll kind of crumble under that pressure and they haven't been there. But that's where there's that certain level of like maturity that you have to get to that next level, to not just get the good qualifying to time, but actually compete when all the mind games are being played, when the trash talking has happened. And I mean, like, you know, I feel bad. I really do. Like, you know, trash talking like a 14-year-old.
Yeah,
but
that's got to be hard.
It is, but like, and it's so funny. Like, I think it's hilarious because like there's some of the best range from like ages 30 to like 14, and to see a 14-year-old like look over at a 30-year-old and like glare at him or like talk crap to him, like it's so funny. And that's what's really cool again about the sport, is that it doesn't matter if you're 14, it doesn't matter if you're 30, it doesn't matter if you're rich or you're poor. Everything comes down to what you do with the sticks when it comes to the actual race. And that really is like it's a level playing field throughout the whole thing. And that's what you don't get in other sports, is like if you're 14 and you're playing baseball, you're not going to have the arm strength to like be in the major leagues, but you can be 12 and go out and beat the crap out of me. And it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter if you're 12. And it's just, I think that's such a cool part of the sport.
It's really cool.
And that, and I've known I've gotten to see all these, like, I guess I've grown up with all these kids, I guess, that we've been racing together since we were like 13, and we've grown up together to now, like, I've been doing this for drones for about 5 years, but planes my entire life, and we've grown up together. And it's been so cool that we've been able to compete with these old guys, beat these old guys beat us, but we're at the end of the day, when you go down there, put down the goggles, we're all on the same playing field no matter what. And
That's awesome.
I think it's really cool.
Are you the old guy on the tour now?
Dude, it's sad. It really is.
You turned 18 last week.
Yeah, on DRL. So on DRL, the age limit is 16 right now.
Okay.
And I was the youngest pilot ever to be on DRL at 17. I got on when I was 16. I competed. I won when I was 17, and I turned 18 like 3 days ago. But I would say the average age for the guys on the DRL, because that is the top guys. And like I was telling you, it's so easy for these young kids to get so good. They can practice. But to get to that next level, there's a certain level of maturity. And like, I mean, you start to get it like, even just like human nature. As you get older, you start to develop a certain level of maturity, being able to handle yourself under pressure, being able to like push off the things that the kids struggle with the most is like having a bad heat and coming back in. Like they get like, oh, somebody saw me like mess up, like, oh, I'm scared. And
I'm terrible now.
Yeah, exactly. But as an adult, you start to like kind of be able to push that away, and that's what kind of puts them at a higher tier. So I'd say most of them age from around 22 to like 30, I would say, on the DRL, and I'm the youngest. I'm the baby of the show. They always
You still are
on the show, that is. But
okay.
on the other leagues, so like there's other leagues, it's called multi-GP, and they're like a grassroots league, and that's where anybody can race, and that's where we're racing drones that are more similar to this, that are much faster.
We didn't really talk about that drone. So that's your that's the middle. Trying to explain to the audio only listeners.
So this is like the middle class drone, I'd say. So it's not the small one that I would practice with.
Right.
This is a race drone that I would fly in like your local race.
Gotcha.
And that we fly these all around the world. And this is so DRL is a professional league. Only the 12 best pilots fly these drones. Yeah. But if you want to get on the DRL, you of course have to build a name for yourself, unless you do it through the sim. And that's we fly drones like this, and they fly upwards of 120 miles an hour. They're super fast. Wow. And
so that's faster than that one, than the big one, than the one you guys race on tour.
Yeah, the ones we fly on tour or whatever, those are a little bit slower just because these are like almost impossible to watch, because going at 120 miles per hour, it's like impossible to even comprehend what's happening almost.
Yeah.
So it is crazy, crazy fast. And of course, we can put GoPros on them and chase and film people as well.
Yeah. It looks like an erector set. Like it looks like you kind of built it out of carbon fiber, and you know, it looks a little less finished than those two guys do.
Yeah. So these are like, it's like really like almost an engineering like puzzle, or like, I don't know, something you get like your like husband for Christmas is like, you get your carbon fiber parts, you build all that together, bolt it all together, then you get your motors, you put them on there, and then like it's an engineer's dream that you get your electronics, you solder, you have to learn how to solder, so that's like the tech side to it and the education side to it. You get on there and you have to solder up all the motors, and then you plug that into your flight controller, and then you have to get your video working where you can see through the goggles, and then you have to go in and program it, and like it's gotten easier and easier over the years, but it's like really something that you have to learn how to build, and there's that barrier that we're trying to get lower and lower, the barrier of entry, to where like you can't just, no 13-year-old is going to be able to go out there and just throw this together, or no normal one. There are 13-year-olds who've done it. And that's where their dads, that's another cool thing where dads can get involved with it with their kids. Oh, hey, son, like we can build this together. You can go out and fly it, and you can practice on the simulator, and then we can go out and fly this together. I can get a goggle. We can race each other. Like me and my dad race each other all the time. And my dad races as well now to this day. And obviously, he's not the best pilot in the world, but he loves every second of it. He has so much fun, and we can do it together.
So you're trying to get that barrier of entry lower, to where at least stigma-wise, you don't have to be this brilliant engineer, exactly, or somebody who's got $5,000 to burn either. Yeah, it all has to come down in order to grow the sport, right?
Exactly. And I would say, so the barrier as far as the cost goes, I would say, so this drone right here, this is
that's the one that you make.
Yeah, you could get this all up for about $300.
Really?
And it's we raced them. I actually just got back from St. Louis last weekend. We had a race racing these in an abandoned warehouse in St. Louis. It was super cool. They have LEDs in them, and we were all racing. So that's $300. And I would say a good budget, you could get into this for less than $1,000 for sure. And you need, so this controller that we sell, $250 controller.
That's yours too?
Yep. And then the goggles, those are the most expensive part, and they run about $500.
And all of these you've made. The goggles is your company?
No,
is
the 533? Goggles are not my company. That's a company called Fat Shark.
Okay.
But
you made the RC control?
Yeah, and the website is fly533.com, and that's FIVE and then 33 the numbers.com.
So 5 spelled out. Fly, FIVE 33.
.com, yeah.
Gotcha.
And so you get the radio for $200, goggles for about $500, and then a $300 drone. Yeah. And then there'll be, I'd say, you probably you get closer, leaning to about $1,500, because you'll need some batteries and some chargers and some miscellaneous. You'll need a soldering iron to solder some. But other than that, like you were saying, like lowering the barrier of entry and making it less hard to get into. So that's something my company is trying to work a lot harder in, is make it less expensive, but also easier to get into. So some of the products we're coming out with now so right now you'll see here that there's solder joints right here that you have to solder, and that's very, very difficult to sit there and, like, of course, no 13-year-old's going to be like, let me get my soldering iron out and like do this perfectly.
Burn your fingers off.
Yeah, burn your fingers off. The thing's at 350 degrees Celsius. Like, that hurts. So what we're coming out with is we're going to get that done from the factory. So we get the motors, and they're going to have a plug. So they'll have like a plug that looks a lot like this one right here.
Yeah.
And that's
like
usually,
a sleeve fitting.
That's usually what we use to plug our battery in.
Yeah.
But we can use those exact same plugs to plug in our motors that we found. So we're going to get those soldered up and from the factory, and then you get your ESC, which is like the powerhouse, I guess, of the drone. And then those will come pre-soldered up, and then all you have to do is plug in your motors, and you bolt that to the drone, and then you can plug in your camera and plug it. So that's what we're working to, and that's what I'm like trying to work to develop.
Gotcha.
Is not only try and make some of the best racing products, some of the best products out there, but we're trying to make it easier and better for everyone to get into this sport, because at the end of the day, like, yes, I want to race and do the best that I can, but at the end of the day, we have to grow the sport for it to get anywhere, for it to be the full-time job for someone someday, and to lower that barrier of entry to bring more people into it is really what we're trying to do. And so that's what not only am I trying to make great products again, but I'm trying to make it easier for anyone and everyone to grow the sport as a whole.
Yeah, there's like this delicate dance, it feels like, to where you still want to get the hobbyists, the model car guys, the guys who still want to build something and tactically put something together.
Yeah.
You know, otherwise they're just going to go buy a Mavic
Exactly.
Pro or something
and
like that.
You really hit on an interesting point there, because so many people have asked, you can buy a drone ready to fly. So you can buy an FPV drone ready to fly, and all you'll do is you'll get your controller, get your goggles, you'll plug it in, and you can go fly it. There's no building that has to be done.
Right.
You'll have to pay somebody to build it, of course, but like we have thought about doing that. But like you were saying, like then, so let's say they go out, they run into a tree at 100 miles an hour, and now they have a broken drone, and they have no idea how to fix it. They have no clue what went into it. And I don't like that. I think there's a certain education aspect to it that can inspire a lot of kids to not just sit there and play on the video game, because yes, this is a really fun, like, of course, video games, parents are like, get off your video game or whatever. And this is a really cool mix between playing a video game and like having a good time competing against all your friends and stuff, and learning how to like program drones and like technology and things like that. And that's really what got me into it. And what I want to be able to have is like an all plug. I don't want you to have to solder, but I want you to have to put together the carbon fiber pieces, bolt it together. I want you to have to plug in the motors, plug everything together, and no, you're not going to be soldering, and no, it won't be like an engineering experiment where you're like sitting there soldering everything, but you'll still get the exact same concepts. You'll still have to go in and plug it in, figure some things out. And that's more tailoring towards not only the people who like don't want to get into that and the kids, but also tailoring towards people who do want to have that experience, like that immersive experience of where they're in there building their own drone
and feel like you learned something too,
Yeah.
or get better at
Totally.
something while you're doing it.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, each propeller has its own motor, it looks like,
Yeah.
right? So each motor then connects to some kind of motherboard, it looks like, in there.
So
and then there's this whole video aspect to it too. So there's this, like, I'll say it again, this like model car kind of feel to it, where you're building something, but then there's also this extra tech bump, where you're talking about certain bands of frequencies and things like that. So it is like a very well-rounded kind of engineering, an opportunity to educate people on a lot of different aspects.
For sure. And I was telling you earlier that like there's some people who are really good at flying but maybe not so good at building, and some people who are really good at building but not so good at flying. It just depends what you like, but it's really cool. Whether or not you like building, you're gonna have to fly, and whether or not you like flying, you'll get to build as well. And it's like you kind of get roped into both of it at once. And so yeah, like you were saying, there is like the model car experience where like you're building your car, you're plugging in your motor, you're getting it to connect to your remote and everything, but now you have this whole other system on there that is transmitting your video. So we're sitting here, and so you have your controller, which transmits on one system, or one frequency, and that's usually 2.4 gigahertz.
Okay, which is like what your Wi-Fi works.
Yeah, so most, or you might not know this, but like on most Wi-Fi transmits on, there's a 2.4 band and a 5.8 band. So we're using the 2.4 band to control the drone, okay? And that's what's
that's how you're talking to it with no latency, or very little latency.
So you're using the sticks, and that's what's telling what each motor to spin up and so forth.
That's crazy, the math that's going on in there.
Oh, it's crazy. It's literally a little computer that's inside of this thing. And then aside from that, you have your video system, and that's completely separate from your controller system. And so that is on 5.8 gigahertz. And so you can't use the same frequency, because then they would interfere. So it's a different frequency, and that is where your video is coming through. So you have this little camera on the front here, And then you have your antennas coming out the back, and that's transmitting to your goggles, which have these antennas on here. And you plug those in, you can look through these, and it's just two tiny little screens in there, and you put your eyes up against them, and you can see exactly what the camera sees. And you go from sitting down, like sitting in your lawn chair in your backyard, to being in the front seat of like a fighter jet, and you can go look at the top of that tree, and you can go ride down that mountain, and you can go chase that car, chase that mountain biker, etc., all from sitting right there, just moving your two sticks around.
How far does a video signal go?
That varies. I would say around at max 5 miles.
Okay.
At max.
Have you ever lost a drone? Like, where am I? How do I get home?
I lost one, but I found it. Oh, so I guess I can't.
No, you found it. You didn't lose one.
Well, I crashed it in the water.
Oh. No.
So I had a technical failure. I was flying. And I was chasing an RC plane. So I was with my buddies. We were flying over this lake. And he wanted me to chase this RC plane over this lake.
And film it?
Yeah. And we were getting this beautiful sunset.
Sure.
And it was so beautiful. And I was flying around. And then I had a malfunction where one of my motors went bad or something. And it fell out of the sky. And there's nothing you can do.
And you just watched it happen from the goggles.
Yeah. Like, obviously, I'm not going to get hurt. But I'm just sitting there and it's like, no. So luckily, I was able to. So then I was like, well, I really want to find that, because then I had all. That's kind of funny. Like, we're so motivated to find these stupid things because we have such great footage. Like,
of the crash.
Yeah. So then it's like, all you want, like, take the drone. I don't care. Just give me the tiny little SD card on there so I can take that back and see it for myself and show my friends or whatever. So me and a buddy ended up getting in this lake, like pulling our shorts up and just like waddling back and forth. Like,
I know it was around here somewhere.
And finally we ended up, and it's like, oh no, that was a turtle or something. It's like, and then finally you find it, and then we got the footage, and it turned out great or whatever.
Yeah. Was it trash? Was the drone completely unusable? Any usable parts?
Some parts are usable, of course, like the frame and the propellers and everything. Like, the motors actually are waterproof. They can function. The only thing you'll have problems with, of course, if you leave it underwater for too long, like, you'll start to rust things. But the motors can handle it for the most part. But your electronics, like the motherboards and the cameras and so forth, like the cameras will fill up with water, and like the motherboards will get fried from being powered on underwater.
Yeah.
But the motors, and like, you can salvage about half of it, is what I'd say. Gotcha. So it's not a complete loss, but you have to find it first. And all we really care about at that point is the SD card, and then we'll worry about the drone later. But yeah.
Has the military reached out to you about flying drones for them?
So I lied to you. There's actually another company. There's two companies. So the second company is actually we work with SWAT teams. Wow. So this is a company that kind of branched off of the original 533, and we developed drones and like a system or a curriculum for these guys, and the drones we develop are very similar to this one. And what we would do is, or I'll just give you a rundown. So say that there is a criminal, and he's in a building, and he's armed. You know he's armed. You don't know who he is. You don't know what type of weapon he has, but you know he's in there and he's hiding. And so normally in the past, you would send a team of guys, a SWAT team, in there, and they'd be, of course, armed and trained highly to go find this guy and make sure that they can get him. That's very dangerous. Of course, you know, he could set booby traps. He could be sitting around the corner with whatever weapon he has, and boom, that's a human life you're risking. And that's, human life is such a valuable thing, of course, because that's a family. That's so valuable. So what we did is we took this same technology, and we train these guys to where they can sit in their squad car. They take a drone that fits in the palm of your hand, and they can actually fly the drone in ahead of the SWAT team. So they can go in there, look left, right, go look in the ceiling, go look in the attic, go look in the basement, and get, like, not only that, but like, I mean, we don't think about going into a building like trying to find a killer very often, but you don't know the landscape of the building. So if you can send a drone in there, get the landscape of the building, see if there's like, oh, I don't know, he's standing right here, or he set up a trap here, or something like that. And we have started developing drones and working with teams to actually training these guys to sit in their car, fly it, send in a drone. They can record all of this, and then they can find out the entire landscape. The end goal is to find the guy, of course, and then once you find the guy, it makes it a heck of a lot easier, because then you can sit there and you have a security camera where you're watching exactly where he is live. You're on comms with the guys who are inside the building, and boom, hey man, we see you, like, you might as well just surrender, and if he tries to get away, then all right, we're going to chase you around.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So that you brought up a very interesting point, and
I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Well, so this tool, it's a great tool for getting information in
Yeah.
a situation like you just described, right?
Yeah.
Where they're at a complete deficit of information.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, the people are like, oh, drones are going to spy on me and stuff. And like, it's not like that.
Yeah.
And of course, we're selling this to like SWAT teams, and we're not just going to go around and sell this to whoever. But yeah, it's incredibly valuable to them because we want to keep them safe. And of course, we have, these people who are going out there risking their lives for us to keep us safe. I mean, these are police officers, etc.
Right.
We want to keep them as safe as possible and give them the technology to do so. So that is what kind of like I was telling you, the second sector of the company is. We're trying to go into that space, and that's completely separate from drone racing and anything, but we're trying to make a difference in the world and so forth.
Do you know if the FBI has anything like that on staff?
Yeah, we have competitors. So
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so there's people out there doing it for sure. And then, of course, I don't know much about what the military has or whoever, but it is drones are becoming more and more popular, and the technology is getting better and better. So cheaper and more accessible, and people are only going to get better at it. So, like for this, we took the guys at the SWAT team, and we took the best 4 guys at Call of Duty. Yeah. And these guys were like, yeah, we play Call of Duty. We're pretty good at it. And I was like, I want you guys to be the ones that we train. And they all, they were able to, I trained them for several hours. And I'm in a unique opportunity again in my companies where I have something over my competitors to where you can get trained by the world champion.
Sure.
And that's very helpful because obviously I've been able to pick up things over the past to how to learn things faster, how to pick up things faster. And I've been able to give them those skills and ideas to make sure that they are the best that they possibly can become this scenario where they need to save a life. And that has been, as drones become, again, cheaper, more accessible, and more mainstream, that'll only become easier for everyone to do. But it's been a really cool experience for me to be 17 and be like, okay, it's Wednesday, let me go train the SWAT team. And like, you get some weird looks from your buddies or whatever. But I mean, again, it's a really cool experience, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
That's super fascinating, man. Okay, so when you first got here, we talked about the 3 different drones, and you told me this top speed for each one.
Yeah.
Okay, so the big one that you guys race in the DRL.
Yeah, that's 90 miles per hour.
Is the top speed.
Yeah, and that is, again, like we can make a drone go faster, of course, by these other ones. But at the end of the day, when you're trying to make it a spectator sport,
right?
You
look cool, sound cool,
whatever. But you don't want it to be too fast because then it's like, oh, there's a drone. Oh, he's gone. Oh, yeah. And when you're flying in a stadium, which is relatively small, when you fly through, a NASCAR track at 200 miles an hour, like you get to see the car for a long time. But when you're in a stadium going 100 miles an hour, it gets from one end to the other real quick. So that's why they slowed it down.
Gotcha. And then everybody flies the same exact drone. It's like restrictor plate racing in NASCAR.
On the DRL, yes. So we're all flying the exact same drone. And then that's where...
do they check them?
Oh, well, we don't get to touch the drones at all. They're handling it all. They hand us a controller, they hand us goggles, and then they just plug in our drones.
Really? So it's not even your gear you're working with?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow. That's super cool.
So that's completely like NASCAR, where they give us rules, and we don't get to touch the drones at all. And that's different from the grassroots racing, like I was saying, MultiGP, where we're building all of our own drones. And,
more the dirt track, kind of, if you're going to compare it to stock car racing.
So that's really cool. But then we have like Spec Racing. So this is like, of course, the tiny trainer. That's not DRL, but we do. So to compete in the tiny trainer races, you have to use the 533 motors. You have to use the tiny trainer frame, and what that does is that gives you that DRL. That gives like other people that DRL-esque experience, because when you go to a normal race with MultiGP grassroots dirt style racing, that's where you can build whatever drone you want. You can put whatever propellers, you can put whatever battery.
Whoever can build the best one and not crash it.
Exactly. And that's where like some people are like, well, he had a nicer drone than me, or he had this and he had more, whatever. And that's where we're trying to make Spec Racing a thing, is where everybody's flying the exact same thing. And that's what my company, again, is. We're doing that in the racing side of things, is we're trying to make it more fun for everyone. And like DRL has made such an awesome platform with DRL, and we're all flying, and makes for such close racing. And you're not like, that guy won because he has a better drone. And that's where the Spec Racing comes in, and we're trying to make that a thing.
It's fascinating. How fast is that? Does the middle one go?
Yeah,
the carbon fiber one?
Yeah, so this one, we have the big one, which goes 90 miles an hour. The middle one goes about 120. Miles per hour. And I was telling you earlier, the acceleration of all these, I say the top speed, and they can all get to this top speed in about a second. So
each one of those drones can get to their respective top speed in 1 second.
in 1 second.
So that one is going 120 miles an hour in 1 second.
Yeah. So zero,
Jeez.
it can go from sitting there to going 120.
That's
in
nuts,
a second,
man.
which is, it's really hard for like for a person who's never experienced it before to like think about that.
Yes.
Yeah, it really is. Like,
It
you
is.
can't even imagine. But like, if you think of, if you've ever been in a car that goes 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, like think about that, and then like 4 times faster than that, I guess, which is crazy. Like from 0 to 120 in a second. That might be more than 4 times. I don't know. I'm bad at math. That's why I'm not an engineer. But yeah, and then the smaller ones, of course, we're not trying. So the idea with this is we can't, I don't have a baseball stadium in my backyard.
Right.
So we wanted to scale down the baseball stadium and bring it to my backyard.
And a way you can do that is by lowering the top speed.
Lowering the top speed, making the drone smaller, making the gates smaller, and that's where. So this one goes about 50 to 60 miles an hour.
Okay.
And it's again 0 to 60 in about a second, which still is mind-bogglingly fast. The acceleration of these is incredible. But that was kind of the premise and the idea of the tiny trainer from the beginning.
It's fascinating, man. I want one now just from hearing you talk about it. You're probably going to get me into this sport.
Yeah. Hey. Well,
it sounds awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just down the road. This so 533. I run this out of my basement.
Really?
So we ship all around the world. And I have employees. I mean, it's kind of cool that like everybody, when you're 17, you want to go to get a job, a minimum wage job. I have unlimited access to 17-year-olds who want to work because it's like, oh, he's in my English class. You want to come work for me? So it's a really nice spot for me to be in.
Yeah.
So
I was watching this. I think it was an NBC special or something. That it was a profile piece on you.
Yeah.
And it talked about, you went to Maryville High School and you do this during the day, and then you come home and you run your business.
Yeah.
Is that really what happens in real life?
Genuinely is what happens. So I wake up in the morning and so first of all, we're a small business, and a lot of running a business is living below your means. So like we're a business, and I am like the guy who's like the main, like, I guess, face behind the company.
Yeah.
But I'm also the guy who's shipping out packages, also the guy who's answering support messages.
Yeah.
Like you go on Apple and say, hey, my iPhone's broken, you're talking to some person from God knows where.
Yeah.
But like you message 533, you're going to talk to me. And like that's it's a really it's a smaller company, it's a grassroots company, but we're trying to, of course, if I do all the work myself and I'm at a position in my life where I don't have to go take care of the kids at night or do whatever, I can do it all myself.
Yeah.
And but I'm also like I was saying, so we do have multiple warehouses. So I have a warehouse in the U.S. that I run alongside my employee. His name's Connor. He goes to my high school. He's in like my English class. And, like
awesome.
He comes and works for me after school. So I go from school. I actually and this is shout out to Maryville High School for this one. My 4th block class. There's 4 blocks. So I'm like, hey, I'm not going to college. Like, and I'm running this business, and like I don't have time to run this business and be in school at the same time. So they were working with me, and so my 4th block class is I get to go run my business as my class.
Why not?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm so thankful to have like such a supportive school like Maryville High School, and I'm very, very lucky and fortunate, and I'm very appreciative to that. So I get done usually I'm supposed to be done at school at 3:20, but I get out at 1:00. I can go home, get everything done, and Connor can come over and get everything done, but also like there's support messages, and we have to launch product photos, keep the website running, work on new products, test all these things. There's so much to running the business, and doing all that at once is really time consuming. So I'm having to do all that at once, but again, I'm in a position in my life where that's something I can do, and I love every second of it. And it's not like I'm doing something that like I'm not selling like mattresses to like old people. Like I'm doing exactly what I love. I'm making products to make what I love better, and I get to do it every single day and get paid for it. So I'm very, very happy about it.
So are any of these kids who are looking up to you as the Michael Jordan of their sport, you know what I mean? Do you find any of them reaching out through the company and wanting to fly your drones just to kind of like get some interaction with you?
Yeah, I mean, we actually it is kind of funny how so yes, I race, and like if you get good at something, like you'll have the people who like kind of look up to you and fans, and like I was telling you, there's so many of these top pilots are 12 to 14 and like or 12 to 16, and like but we sponsor pilots. So like that's another part of a business is like you want to grow the business, and I can't be everywhere at once. So we sponsor pilots from different parts of the world. I'd say we sponsor probably dozens and dozens of people from different countries in the world, and people will message me and like, yeah, we'll give you free parts, we'll give you discounted parts to represent our brand. And yeah, it's been really cool to like, and I mean, it's not like I mentor like kids or anything, but like I do feel like to a certain degree I need to set an example to a certain degree. And like for me to get to the point I did in my career and then go and start a business, I hope that it can, like, these kids can see that and be like, maybe I can do that someday, and I can get, and maybe it's not in drone racing or whatever it is, but you can get good at something, and if you have a talent and a passion for it, then why not take the risk? Why not go out and do that? And I hope that, and that's what at the end of the day, like, yes, I'm doing this because I love it, but I think that there's a bigger picture of like, yes, this could inspire other kids and other people my age that have done the exact same thing I have, but instead of going and starting their own company, they went and got the 15% from the company who got the bigger portion, you know. And I want to inspire kids to go out or adults to go out and go attack the dream that they always wish they had. And for me to be like someone who people want to look up to or whatever, I mean, I don't like to think of it like that, but then I'm all for it. I'm going to try and set the best example that I can for those people.
It's great. How are you going to stay on top of the game?
Yeah, and that's...
Or do you care? Yeah. I mean, you've got a successful company. Like,
yeah, but like I was telling you before, it's a closed loop, and so much...
So you need to succeed as a pilot.
So much of my success in the business, it comes right back around. So, and I was telling you, there's that more pressure from that, but I thrive off that, and I want... Everybody's coming for me all the times, and that's not only from a racing perspective, but a business perspective. Everybody's trying to make a better motor than me. Everybody's trying to make a better propeller than me. And that is always that drive. Somebody's coming after you. Somebody's trying to make you better. And that's how innovation works in itself from the very beginning. That the second the first car rolled off the line, somebody else was trying to make a car that was better than it. And that never stops, and it never will.
It drives innovation.
But yeah, and if I can go out and be in this position in my life where I can go out and I have all this energy, so motivated to do this, what it is, and it's so easy for me to be motivated to go out and beat these people because I love it so much. Yeah. And it puts me, again, and I've been doing this for 5 years, and I've been trying to be the best for so many years, and getting to that point, I know what it's like to be underneath that, so I know all those, and I know the people, we're so close outside of the industry, or outside of the track, I guess you could say, to all these, like the top guys are all so close. I know how bad everyone else wants it, but it's just wanting it more and doing things. The biggest quote one of the bigger, I watch a lot of motivational speeches and stuff like that. One of the biggest things I like to live off of is do what others won't so that you can achieve what others can't. And I think that's really valuable. And it's like, so when I was a kid, like, obviously my parents are both doctors, and they were very successful in school, and there was almost a bit of pressure to do very well in school. And I remember being like upset that I wouldn't get as good a grades as some of my buddies or my parents or whatever. And but then I kind of realized now, especially, that like I was lazy for sure. And like I was getting upset that I wasn't getting 100 on my spelling test, but I wasn't going out there and practicing my spelling words, or I wasn't going out there and studying. And my friends who were going out there and actually studying and getting better grades, and I was getting mad at them for that. Like that was, I had no reason to be upset because they were outworking me. And it goes the same way. I'm trying to apply that same thing now to all the things that I do now, is that I will never be upset for losing if I know that person outworked me. So I'll never be upset. But you're not going to let them do that. Exactly. And I'm in that position where I can really just outwork everyone, and it's not that I'm outworking everyone. I'm doing a lot of other things. I'm also in the middle of getting my pilot's license to become a pilot for like flying like real airplanes. Yeah. And that's another thing. But running a business, doing all this, being in school, I play the cello, so I also am in music. Doing all that. It's not that I'm putting more time in than everyone, but I'm just trying to take all the experience that I've gained over all these years and putting it into being more efficient and more effective and than everyone to do all this and to be the best. And if I'm not the best and I know that person worked harder than me, I will like shake their hand and totally respect that because I've been there before. So your parents are obviously highly motivated, successful people, especially people who are familiar with academia. Yeah. Are you? Is there anything? Was it hard to tell them you don't plan on going to college? Yeah, how did they take it? If my mom's watching this right now, I remember telling my mom the first time that I didn't want to, and it was kind of like a weird point in my life after the business started to kind of become more successful, and like I got on the DRL. And I remember I was at my grandparents' house. We were sitting in the ATV, and we were sitting in the field, and we were like watching the sunset. And I was like, Mom, like, I don't think I'm going to go to college. And, you know, she was like, you know, as a parent, like you want to set your kids up for success for so many years. You're doing all these things to where they can go out, be successful and do what they love. And it's so hard for them to like, be like, and yeah, you know, like I'm sure you understand that.
I do. I made that decision and had that conversation with my parents
and
too.
It's so, and there's risk behind that, of course, and there's risk behind all of this, but nobody's another quote would be like, nobody's ever really done anything cool without a little bit of risk. Like nobody's ever like done something worth remembering that didn't involve risk.
Sure.
And I kind of just had to explain to my parents, like, I love doing what I'm doing right now. I truly believe deep down that I can make this something that lasts longer than just me being good at drone racing. I can build something bigger than that, and I can learn. I feel like with the opportunities I had in the position that I was in or I am in, that I could get more out of these next 4 years, giving it everything I had to learn all that hands-on. Like I've always been a hands-on kind of guy, and going into a class and looking at, oh, here's a business model. What does this do? And all that, like, but being able to do that hands-on, deal with taxes hands-on, deal with manufacturers hands-on, negotiating hands-on, not reading it out of a book, but doing it hands-on was just something that I felt I could learn so much more from. And that's what I kind of told them. And they're incredibly supportive. And of course, as a parent, it was difficult for them to hear that. Mm-hmm. But they know, I guess, me, and they know how hard I've worked at this for my entire life and how much I love this and how big of a passion I have for this. And when you have that big of a passion for them, it's impossible. And my dad always told me this about being a doctor from a young age, is the people who should be a doctor are the people you can't talk out of being a doctor, because being a doctor, you know, you make all this money, blah, blah, blah. But you went to school for 13 years and you worked your butt off for those 13 years. And there's so much stress, like you mess up and you could kill somebody. Like that is so stressful. And yeah, you tell that to somebody and they're like, oh man, I don't want to be a doctor anymore. Then yeah, you shouldn't be a doctor. But the people you can't talk out of it, that's the people who should be doing there. And this is the same thing for the business. When like nobody was able to talk me out of doing this. Nobody's able to talk me out of telling me this is a bad idea of not going to college. Yes, I might miss out on X, Y, and Z, whatever, but I feel like I can make the most of so many other things. Go see the world, go travel, go meet all these people, and do this hands-on. And it's like a write my own story type thing. I don't want to, you can follow the road, you can follow the path, and you can get to X, Y, and Z point. But if you go and write your own path, you can surpass that and write your own book. Sure. And that's kind of over the last year and a half, of course, that's required a lot of me growing up. You know, I was, everybody's young, dumb, and stupid, like 15-year-old at some point in their life, and I definitely was that. And to go from that to, all right, it's time, like, this is what I'm going to do. There's a lot of growing up that I had to do personally, and I feel like I've done that. I hope that I have, and of course, I still have a lot left to go. But I've just kind of had to buckle down and tell myself that, like, yeah, you can't go to all the high school parties, you can't go do this and that or whatever, and that you gotta, and like I was telling you, I have like, I feel like there's the people watching me and the people that I need to, like I don't know, mentor.
Is there a responsibility?
Yeah, responsibility there, and like you don't want to go there and make a fool of yourself because say you run the business and you're good at drone racing or whatever, but then you go out there and be an idiot, you can lose it all in a heartbeat. Sure. And I just there's a certain bit of responsibility and maturity that you have to take responsibility for that, and I kind of had to, from a young age, kind of decide that's what I was going to do. And like, yeah, you might miss out on a couple of things here and there, but at the end of the day, to be able to support yourself, family someday, and to have all those experiences is something I wouldn't trade for the world.
It's awesome, man. I got to ask you one more thing that Jonathan Halley wanted me to, well, I don't know if he wanted me to ask you, but he told me that you were, and you alluded to it, an amazing cello player. Are you like Yo-Yo Ma level?
No. So I've played the cello since I was in 5th grade. And in the Maryville City schools, I've been to Maryville City schools my entire life. When you get to 5th grade, they like, of course, try and get you to do new things, and like you have to play a musical instrument. I was never a good singer. I'm still a terrible singer. To like play the band or be in the orchestra. And I had no older siblings. I didn't really know anybody in the grade above me, but I just was like, yeah, sure, I'll play in the orchestra. And I got into the orchestra, and from that, and I'm incredibly, incredibly competitive, as you might be able to see right now. Like anything I do, I want to be really good at it. And I got into playing the cello, and I took it super seriously, and like I went super hard at it. And I was in the Knoxville Symphony Youth Orchestra when I was in 6th grade, and I really, really started pushing hard toward that, and I really enjoyed it. And then as drones started to become more popular, I started to get bigger into it. I started to kind of drift away from like not wanting to be like, I mean, I'm not going to be a professional cello player or anything by that means. But it's something that I really, really love. And like music is something I've always like enjoyed and found a passion for. And no, I'm not some incredible cello player or anything, but I mean, yeah, sure, I can play a few notes here and there. And I'm in the orchestra still as a senior in high school. My girlfriend, actually, her name's Ellie. She's an incredible cello player. She's like, she's got like first chair in the East Tennessee State like senior clinic orchestra. So she's like really good and like puts me to shame.
Wait,
So
girlfriend's a cello player too?
Yeah.
Did you guys meet in the,
in the
orchestra?
Yeah,
in 5th grade?
No, not well. She's a year younger than me, so but I've known her since I was in like 7th grade.
That's nuts.
But she is like, so like my parents like that. My mom loves to hear me play, and I'll play, and then like. So I'll play a little bit, and then like we'll let Ellie play, and she just puts me to shame.
Really?
And so
that's nice.
Oh, and
it's probably good to see you get beat at something.
Yeah. My mom loves it. She's like, "Oh, Ellie, you should play that." And it's just, "Oh, that's beautiful, Evan. You should." Yeah, but you know, my mom loves to give me a hard time about all that. But at the end of the day, like I did take it super seriously at the beginning, and like I want anything I do, I want to be the best at it. But at there came a point where it's like, well, this is like something I really enjoy and I have a passion for it, but it's like more of a hobby, and it's like I don't have to be the best at it, but I enjoy it. I met my girlfriend through it. I have a ton of lifelong friends that I've met through orchestra, and it's just been something that I've really enjoyed. And like Jonathan was saying, it's just kind of a cool thing to like a common interest. You can go anywhere in the world,
sure.
And you play the cello. Like I love music and I do this too, and it's like a common thing. And that's something really beautiful behind music that I've liked.
Dude, I'm so glad that you came by. I feel inspired to go be 18 again.
Yeah.
And make better decisions.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad. Thank you for this opportunity. Like I said, this is a really cool. I've watched a bunch of your podcasts here recently, and it's I'm very fortunate and happy to be brought on the show.
Well, thanks, man. Spread the word. I hope I hope your parents will be proud.
Oh yeah, they'll be watching this. Mom, I know, right there, Dad, Grandma, Papa. I know everybody's watching this, so it's good. Thank you again.
Thank you. Take care, man.
Sounds good. Sweet.
South of Scruffy.